We had 18 months to develop a carriage.
Hello everyone and welcome to my educational platform. Glad you're here. It is a pleasure this week to be welcoming Mr. Vasilios Mouyis. Mr. Mouyis is currently serving as a board director at Navios Maritime Partners L.P, whilst he is also a member of the Audit, Compensation and Conflicts Committee as an independent director. Now, allow me to make a parenthesis here to provide a little bit more context for the organization. So, Navios Maritime Partners is a subsidiary body that sits under the Navios Group of companies. The group was founded in 1954 by US Steel with a purpose to transport iron ore towards Europe and the wider US. In 2004, Ms. Angeliki Frangou bought the Navios Group for approximately $200 million. And now, in Q1 2024, the Navios Group of companies is controlling a very diversified fleet of approximately 190 vessels. Mr. Mouyis has over 34 years of experience in ship brokerage and chartering. He is the joint managing director and co-founder of the Athens-based ship brokerage firm Doric Shipbrokers SA, which was founded in 1994. Previously, he was a chartering broker for the Clarksons plc South African office, formerly known as Afromar Pty Limited. He also participates as a panelist for the Handysize Index of Baltic Exchange in London, representing Doric Shipbrokers. Now, what are you going to actually see in this interview? We're going to dive into the greatest challenges of Mr. Mouyis' career through the 90s over to the 2000s until today, what the development of the chartering and brokerage ship industry looked like from that period until now, the challenges of co-launching his venture, how his venture was viewed by the ship owners in Greece, and Mr. Mouyis is also going to be offering his advice and best practices for young people who want to enter the industry. Thank you, Mr. Mouyis, for taking the time to reflect upon your journey and with that to educate the youth. I hope you enjoy the interview and mostly I hope you learn from it. Moving through the entire process, what was the treatment from the Greek ship owners, especially in the early and to late 90s, the early 2000s?
I think that both myself and Spiro were well known, but before we started the company, now sort of a little sort of respected class of the people we were corresponding with. But as with every new thing one brings to the table, you're always going to be put to the challenge. So the beginning was, I must say, a little bit harder than we expected. The limitation is that, in my mind, is that however much data you bring to the table, the unknown is always going to be wider than the known. Turning analog for me is very important. And when I say turning analog, I mean becoming more human, going back to the human side of what we should be doing, listening well, being present.
Thank you, Mr. Mouyis, for being here. As I said, it's a privilege and an honor to have 30 minutes of your time for this educational interview. We're going through Christmas as well, so there is more significance to this interview because I understand your limited time. So basically, you have extensive experience in chartering and ship brokerage. Okay, you've been in the industry, correct me if I'm mistaken, for the best part of 4 decades. You've had your Doric initiative. You started this in 1994 together with your co-founder Spiros Mavoulas. So my first question, and it's a broad question, would be, I would like you to talk to me about the market opportunity you identified
together with your joint managing director, to launch the Doric Shipbrokers SA in 1994, and how you sustained your model through the years. I'm sure there were a lot of challenges. So it's a big open question to begin with.
It is an open question. For me, it's also a privilege to be interviewed. I enjoy seeing young people who have a passion to get involved in entrepreneurship, be expansive in their own intellect and to broaden their perspective, and at the same time to be a channel for other people to also benefit from what you're bringing to the table in your young age so far. So for me, it's a privilege as well. 1994, I was 30 years old, and my partner and I, we knew each other. I used to work in South Africa as a shipbroker. He was working in Greece for an in-house broker. He was chartering manager for an established ship owning company. So we came from slightly different angles of the business, but we were friends. We used to do a lot of business together. I was involved in chartering of the ships that he was representing when I was in South Africa. So I was a competitive broker. He was a principal, so to speak. So he was an in-house broker for it. And we established a good rapport, a good relationship. And when we decided, myself and my young family, to move back to Greece in 1994, and we established Doric together with Spiro. At the time, there wasn't a big plan, except that we would bring in our skills and our contacts together and see how we can develop a little bit of critical mass and build up a clientele, and to try and get the show on the road. It wasn't there was not a lot of foresight. It was just let's see how we can put things together, and let's see where we can grow, where we were orienting ourselves in one direction, but a lot of the business was coming from a second direction. So it was quite interesting looking back as to how much of this was planned and how much of it was the universe sending us in different paths, and just followed the paths that been thrown at us. And we sort of built the company slowly around these paths, and now today we're sort of almost 30-year company. We are leading chartering and brokering company in the Greek arena, and fairly well respected worldwide. So we have recognition, we have a track record, and we just keep going and expanding. I think what we've discovered over the years is that as long as you keep learning and you keep expanding, you will find your relevance. Your relevance will always be there. You have to be prepared to expand, re-engineer your company as you go along, because times change, attitudes change, the way business is done changes. But there are some constants which don't change, and that's where your models and where your things like trust and respect, and how all these solid soft skills come to the fore, and they keep you anchored and they keep you going. And it's been a good ride, and it's as I said, not a hell of a lot of pre-planning, but rolling up the sleeves, keeping focus, and trying to see where this is, where our company's been sort of pulled towards, and steering it as best possible in that direction.
What I want to ask is, you said like rolling up the sleeves. It wasn't pre-planned. It was just trial and error effort in the beginning when you were not established. Nobody knew who you were, but creating that network and moving through the entire process. What was the treatment from the Greek ship owners, especially in the early and to late 90s, the early 2000s?
I think that both myself and Spiro were well known, but before we started the company, now sort of a little sort of respected, plus sort of people we were corresponding with. But as with every new thing one brings to the table, you're always going to be put to the challenge. So the beginning was, I must say, a little bit harder than we expected. And looking back, I think that and this is not just for a business, but I think all of us as individuals, I think when we embark on something new, we usually overestimate where we're going to be in a year's time, but underestimate where we can be in 2 or 3 years' time. And we fell into the same trap. So the first year we expected it would be a lot further than where we'd be. And, that's the critical time where you're either going to hang in there and keep going because your aspirations haven't been fulfilled. You've sort of hoped and expected to be further down the road, and you're not feeling, that uplift as much as you would have liked. And if you just hang in there, then things sort of tip the other way, and it's almost as if the universe is testing you to see how much you really want to do this. And it's if you go through that moment, that tipping point, then things open up. You have to endure the pain of that moment, which is not being where you expected or hoped to have been because of where you were before you opened up your own business, and you thought the carpet would roll out, and the carpets not roll out the way you would have liked because people said, well, hey, we knew you worked for a big company before, now you're setting up your little company. What are you made of? What have you got to bring us? Forget about the past. What are you made of? What are you going to bring to the table now? So that's a challenge, and it's a challenge also individually, because then you have to sort of rehash and see what you're actually not bringing to the table, which is a challenge. But so the beginning was not that easy. Certainly not the first year, but then things opened up. So the minute we went over this test, which is put out, the invisible test which is out there. The minute we went beyond that, then things started gathering pace, and things started coming together a lot quicker than what we would ever have had expected. So, overestimating the near term, underestimating the medium and longer term. That's the summation of our first, 3 years or 4 years of formation where we were sort of building.
I think you're giving invaluable lessons of resilience as to how you structured your business. I'm sure there were a lot of challenges, though, from, let's say, a small challenge of integrating the latest. I think in the late 90s, the entire payment system was digitalized. So you had to basically digitalize all your payments from the 2008 recession. So all that in my mind leads to one question, which is, what is the value of innovation in your space? Do you have to innovate? Do you have to continue the same process that you started in the early 90s? And are you following this until today? How did you adapt to the trends through that spectrum for so many years?
You have to obviously go with the changes. The changes are there. You're not going to be bigger than any of the changes which are thrown your way. So you have to adapt. The key is, to adapt to an extent where you're making best use of the changes, retaining your analog, let's say your analog liturgy in the process. So there's a lot of digital out there. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of change, and all of it sounds quite interesting. Not all of it is that good. It's some of it is because it's the way the market works. But some of it is valuable as long as you're keeping your own skill sets and your own the way you're functioning. You keep it intact. I mean, I'll give you an example, and it's not so much the early 2000s or the late 90s, but it's something which is current. We have all this data mining, data analyze. We have all these tools which are being brought to our space. how we see the world and how we analyze data, and which is fine as long as you realize that there is a limitation. The limitation is that, in my mind, is that however much data you bring to the table, the unknown is always going to be wider than the known. So you're bringing data and you're trying to gather a framework, and you're trying to see the known. You're trying to see, this is my map. The map is not territory. The territory is human. And if you're relying on data and you're relying on all these analytics, and you're sort of keeping your eye on all this sort of information, and at the expense of losing touch with a lot of stuff which are a lot more valuable in terms of perceiving what's happening around the world. If you don't balance the two, then data can start giving you, negative, or this process is not accretive entirely. It starts becoming a drag. It can become a drag. You can become someone who you won't recognize yourself in the future. I was reading the other day, there's the argument about nature and nurture. They say, are you a product of nature, nurture? There's a third element. It's algorithms. We are products of nature, nurture, and algorithms. And if we're not prepared to address the algorithm side, hone it in, bring it down, and to build up our nurture, we're on the wrong path. We're on the wrong path. We're on the wrong path as humans. We're on the wrong path as what we humans can bring to the table in a business venture. What can we bring? We can bring a lot of stuff which data machines cannot give us. Because data machines take something which is a small, this data is endless, and this, the deeper you go in, you realize a lot more. And if you're not at the same time keeping your mindset open, your observing beyond the data, observing, smelling, seeing what's there in the marketplace, but doing, if you're not in that realm and you think that just going that way will keep you going, then okay, you'll be sort of herded into some sort of a pattern, but you won't excel in it. If you want to excel and you want to distinguish yourself, you have to, in my opinion, you have to become, talking to yourself, is rediscover the analog side.
What you're saying, I think it's, I don't want to interrupt. Please go on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give an example. I think that one thing which I've been practicing the last 10 years is how to listen better. I've been reading books and books and trying to rediscover how to listen better. If you just change that faculty, just one thing. Every one of us, everyone who's watching this interview, if you take one thing away from me, take this: learn, listen. Learn to listen. Basically, there are two ways one can listen with. There are two poles. You're either listening to understand, or you're listening to reply. When you're listening to reply, which is the default mode that we all have, or most of us have, you listen to reply. What does it mean? It means that you're only listening to what you want to hear because you want to reply. And the framework you're coming from will be static, will not be expansive, because you're listening to reply, you're not listening to understand. This is the default mode of today's industrialized individuals. And it's not what, if you go to the bush in Africa, or to the natives in Brazil, It's totally different. They listen with their body, they listen with everything. They look at you and they've read you. They've listened so well, so deep. They're just full of listening because all these skills are, we've lost that. If we learn to listen, and it's amazing. It's amazing how things change because you pick up a lot of information which you would never have picked up. And you say, hey, what's that? That's out of my realm. I'm listening now and I can't really reply to that. It's something which is new. And then you start within you, you start seeing how this process can be positive to your development and to your mindset, how it can broaden the way you see things, because you start seeing things less criticism with a lot more openness and to see where is this going? What's happening here? So this is one thing which for me is one of the most important things that I'm telling colleagues of ours in the office, new recruits, friends of mine, youngsters who are, even peers of mine. Let's learn to listen. It's never too late, and it's really is it really changes your world entirely.
From first of all, you're bringing two very significant points in my mind. I've done a lot of interviews. I haven't heard these points being brought out in the manner you did. I want to stand in those two. So first of all, you mentioned data. And this is a huge topic because everybody's talking about AI and how this can be introduced into every single business. And what I've always been discussing with the people I'm interviewing and friends is that, well, okay, AI, machine learning can be introduced, but ethics, for instance, it's a little bit more nuanced. It's a little bit more difficult to introduce ethics into this. And how will people make decisions? It's quite different than having two machines who are programmed, they have data, they have basically a digitalized brain, and they can remember and make decisions. I don't ever believe we are going to be able to exchange people for a machine, especially in the maritime sector. The second thing is listening to learn. And I believe this is the cradle of everything that you're doing, being open-minded, especially in the business you are. Sitting there, absorbing what somebody else will say, I think it's very important. I think it's very important for young people to hear. I think it's also, as you said, very important for older people to hear. I found myself, and I'm not that old, okay, I found myself that as I learn things, I might close the aperture on something because I believe I know everything. So when I sit down with somebody who I believe doesn't know enough, I'm not going to necessarily hear them or listen to them because, well, I have read this or I've read that. What do you have to offer? So you're changing my perspective as we speak. I really love that. I want to see how you channeled all these thoughts you have because you have a lot of channels, a lot of information. You are a panelist for the Baltic Exchange, if I'm not mistaken. You're a board member in the Navios Maritime Partners. How do you channel all that in times of crisis, let's say, in management? How do you transfer all that into your leadership position to effectively lead people?
Basically, you learn to slow down time. You learn to slow down time. How do you slow down time? You slow down time by being, I think your platform is discusses presence and being present. And, how can you be present and be somewhere? So today I'm at a board meeting in Navios. That's where I am. Tomorrow we have a Baltic Exchange Committee meeting. That's where I am. And then I'm doing something else. That's where I am, moment to moment. So how you are able to keep your presence in every sort of duty you called on or every role you're playing is something which one learns with time. It's another sort of process of really sort of disciplining yourself and working yourself towards that to be able to slow down time. A lot of the stuff that all of us and the people who are many years in the industry, one of the biggest challenges we have, anxiety and distraction is how you handle these things. How do you handle anxiety? How do you handle distraction? how do you keep focused and calm and collected and being able to be present everything you do. That is challenging. It's not easy. It's not easy. We're industrial world. We've been taught to be noisy and not to listen well, and to talk a lot, distracted, and being taught or not. And this is the way it's developing into that. So you're going against the forces, which is why turning analog for me is very important. When I say turning analog, I mean becoming more human, going back to the human side of what we should be doing, listening well, being present, not being scattered everywhere. Because if you're here, I'm talking to George. I shouldn't be sort of at the same time worrying about my next deal tomorrow in the office. What I'm going to do the next day or the day after. If I'm, I should work towards being here, and then the drag within me is lighter. So you can, in this way, one can sort of manage to do a lot more things in his or her stride without all the drag which normally come with a busy executive's life. Be able to, and this is again something which one would need to harness within himself. We're going against the forces. The forces want us to be hooked on social media. They want us to be responding to every BIP, BAP, and whatever. To be hooked on every tweet. And so the thing is, how are we going to go again? How are we going to rediscover ourselves? Because you can't say, well, this is not the world for me, because then you might as well go and live in the jungle. And, so we have to live in this world. So the thing is, accept that a lot of stuff that comes to the table is valuable. There's a lot of interesting stuff, data and digital, and brings us a lot of good information. But try and balance it out with bringing your side, and artificial intelligence. I think for me, it's not a threat. For me, it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call. A lot of people are threatened. Artificial intelligence, my job is not going to be there. Big challenges. What's going to happen? And for me, it's a wake-up call for humans, for us to be able to say, okay, we got this intelligence. It's there, and obviously, this brings something to the world, a lot of good stuff and a lot of efficiencies and what have you. But how am I going to participate in this process? Not become a machine, because I can't compete with a machine. So where am I good at? That's innovating, I'm creative, stuff which the machine doesn't have. As long as I can reclaim the stuff, because a lot of the stuff we've lost because we're not listening well. So how are you going to be creative and listen? Not listening well. We're distracted because we have a lot of noise inside us. So we have to try and sort of unravel a lot of this noise and a lot of these what we've been shaped into by circumstances and by the way the world and businesses unfold. Well, this for me is a challenge, but it's a wake up call. I think that we have an opportunity to reclaim a lot of our lost humanity here, and a lot of our. And I don't mean it just I mean it also in a business sense. Be able to just go back to what we're good at in the business architecture, what we bring to the table. We're the architects, we're the creators, and we shouldn't leave that to machines, because then what they will do is they'll just churn out and perpetuate what you've actually sort of put into their algorithms and data which they are picking up, which is again going to be a limited amount of data, because what's unknown is, as I said, it's multifold times bigger than the known.
Yes, and I sincerely believe that it is the same scenario in every big change. So people are scared. They were scared when everything was digitalized and they had to carry credit cards in the early 2000s, and they were calling about the 666 and all of that. And I think inherently people believe that there is a cliff somewhere around there. Okay, so their mind works in the context of how far are we gonna go until we make a fatal mistake with technology and then we can't go back. So they're always wary of applying these technologies because they're not novel technologies, they're brand new. And we're in an era where you cannot really track anything and people can use them for not that, what can I say, honorable reasons. So especially people who are in big businesses like Navios Maritime Partners, for instance, and subsidiaries, they could or should or would be wary of how these technologies will apply. And you are in a leadership position, so you could be or should be wary as well. So I really, really understand that. But what are the expectations from your clients in general? Do they expect you to follow the trends? Do they expect you that you're going to apply your business principles as you've always been? Do they just want to a simple transaction, or is it more emotional? Do you want to keep them long term, short term? What is the dynamic in there?
I think that certainly in our company, in the way we've developed, we have loyal clients. We don't spread ourselves thinly. We're sort of client oriented. We have clients in Doric who have been with us since 1994 when we started. One or two companies, which those days which I mentioned earlier on, where we weren't achieving as much as we'd like, but we picked up, for example, two clients which this day are with us, 30 years later. And in the process, we've built up, quite a lot of clients and a solid base of support for the company. We're not clearing brokers. We're not out there just to clear business. So we want to be relevant to a client in the long term. If it's a client who aligns with the way we're working, where we can, see that we're on the same wavelength in terms of how we want our reputation to be coming to the marketplace. So we focus around those clients, and then what we do is we're obviously a learning organization. That's the most important thing, I think, that we instill in our company is every day the opportunity to learn and to grow. And this is for all our team members. There's a lot of exchange of information. There's a lot of we're doing some training courses in the company. We bring themes between us. So one of the senior brokers will, present a theme and be tutor for younger brokers and just explain a particular theme and relevance. So we're into that learning mode and continuous learning organization, which is very important, because then you say, what do you expect clients expect you to do? Of course, they want you to be efficient. They want you to be there. They want you to be at the forefront of the marketplace and to offer them the opportunities and the best execution possible. So that's for us, stuff which we're always trying to develop and to bring the best out of ourselves in terms of these functions. Just being a knowledgeable broker. We're brokers who bring knowledge to the table, know-how. We bring obviously contacts, reputation. Important thing is to bring value into, your value adding over the years may have changed a bit. Mm-hmm. Yes, it has changed. And, that's where you need to re-engineer yourselves. And as a company, we have done our re-engineering in time. Nothing dramatic, but, as things unfold, we're obviously also rediscovering ourselves and tweaking our sales and changing our the way we do things when we consider that we should be changing tack, going slightly differently. So we're open to that dynamic. It's,
And yeah,
it's a never-ending process, huh?
oh, it absolutely is. Considering all that in mind, how would you advise a young professional just exiting their basic bachelor studies, let's say maritime studies in Greece, when they're just entering their first job, if they want to go into ship brokerage and eventually have a leadership position? So in the next 5 years, how would you advise them to create a career plan?
I think that obviously to equip yourself with knowledge is very important. Whether that comes with getting an extra university degree in shipping, or becoming a member of the chartered shipbrokers and going through the exams. So obviously the educational side is very relevant. You have to be equipped with sound chartering, brokering practices to understand the business, know what a contract is all about, because we're involved in contracts. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is to develop your people skills and how you come across and how you interact with people. This is very important. It's probably one of the most important things in our business or in any business. It's how you're interacting, how you communicate. Of course, are you trustworthy? Are you knowledgeable? Are you listening well? Are you responding to what needs to be done? Are you ahead of the curve or behind the curve? You obviously need to find the curve first to know where exactly you are. But as long as people skills is I mean, it's very important. And the thing is that we said earlier on about how we become mechanized in a way. The minute one of us who's mechanized discovers a true person on the other side, the person will melt him away.
Mm-hmm.
Person will melt you away. Doesn't matter. You may have been, after a while, you're going to be melted away. There's nothing stronger between people than the empathy, than the what the true person brings out. Because it's not all in the mind. It's the mind and the heart, or the soul, or whatever you want to call it. It's not all in the mind. It's not mechanical. Not mechanical. Mechanical, days of Newton are gone. We've had the quantum field and all sorts of other stuff. I won't go into that. I'm just, see a person who radiates, humanness, and put him up against someone who's been steeped into his mechanism because of the way things have gone for him. He'll melt him he'll melt him, and I mean it in a good way. I don't mean it. I mean it. He will melt him, because this is the way we respond. We'll say, "Wow." So in our business, if you bring that out to the client, there's also relevance in that. When you're coming across, even in the business world, you come across someone who brings out a lot of humaneness, you can only but you sort of respond to it, because this is within all of us. This is what we have within us, and we try and bring this in our everyday process, and you can't just turn it on and off. You have to basically become that if you're going to do it. It's not something that you can switch on and off. You just basically have to become more analog and to be able to communicate better and to understand clients, the needs, their anxieties, listen to them, see what they really want. A lot of the time we're not listening. We want our agenda to be imposed on someone. Well, that will only get you so far, especially if the other one is the client and you're looking for his business. So at the same time, if you can bring valuable information for him to change his process or to improve him, something that is incumbent on someone who wants to be expansive and who wants to be all the more relevant, make a change to the client. So it's these are the challenges which I think we have in our business. So going back to your question, education for the youngsters, very important. Ever keep learning. Obviously, if you're going to do shipbroking, chartering, a degree which sort of hones into the practices of chartering shipbroking is valuable. It doesn't have to be. You can learn the ropes in an environment like ours or another similar company, as long as you have good solid understanding and you sort of understand what shipping is, what it's all about, trade, economics. So all these are very relevant to your learning process, to how quickly you'll be able to expand in this field. And then your people skills, very, very important. I think in our business, as with every business.
Mhm. I think the shipping business is quite unique, especially in Greece. From what I have understood, you can dispute this. The ship owners are very noble people. They don't just exist there to lead the business. They feel as if the business is their child, which I believe every entrepreneur will share. But I believe especially in the shipping in Greece, we have this more. So I believe this trickles down to every single person who exists in the business. They want them to feel as if they belong there. They don't just want people who are crunching out numbers and they are filling out spreadsheets, which is very important. Don't get me wrong, it's a business. At the end of the day, they have to make money and they have to be competitive. But when a young person comes into this, they are educated, they have good people skills, they have understood how to listen. Is there something that will give them an edge in your industry? What will make them quite special and impactful, and not just an employee? What do you believe on that?
I think the important thing is, in my opinion, is as a shipping company, as an owning company, to be able to position yourself in such a way where you can basically play the long game and to be able to, not just cash in and out of shipping cycles necessarily, but to be able to be relevant in a different way to the people who are working with you and to, I think that's very important. And in Greece we have, we're a big bag, and we have a lot of different styles of ownership and styles of proprietors who are, the way you describe, noble and a lot of goodness and looking beyond themselves and to expand the business at the same time, develop their people, and people are feeling owners, so to speak, in the business. So you have that, and then you also have the other spectrum where the ownership is different. It's more, there's a bit more of a dogmatic approach, and this is how we do it, and it's done in a less people-friendly manner with more sort of just targets and performance data, and where the respect for your people is not as profound as it is in other areas. So we have the whole spectrum. Obviously, we lead this in this business. And there's a big spread of the way business is conducted. And we as brokers are able to see that because we talk to a lot of different companies, so we can see that the different styles of how business is done, and I think it's up to each and every one of these companies to see if they want to play a different game in terms of what they bring, and this different game is usually also it's actually more profitable. Because if your people come to the office and they're feeling as if they're owners and they feel very relevant and they feel as if they're contributing valuable, then they actually become much better doing that. And then it's a capital intensive business, but people are your most important asset. how people come to a shipping company and how they operate makes a big difference in the profitability of the company. Two different ships in different stables can perform totally different. When I say two different, I mean two sister vessels, two identical ships in different stables, owning stables, over time can perform a lot differently. One of the differentiators, in my opinion, is how you're able to get the best out of your people. So that's a challenge, because some people think that the best way is the stick, others think it's the carrot, others think there's other things you bring. So there's it's a big it's a big topic, and it's for each one of us, wherever we're leading from, to be able to find which is the best way, because we're all leaders. Doesn't everyone's a leader. Everyone can be a leader. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be get a title on your card. I've seen leaders which are 25-year-olds in companies and sitting in their corner and leading people around, and you can see that this is someone who's a leader, because he's going beyond himself, because he's got his colleagues back, because he understands, and he's exuding something. So this is something that so from an individual to a corporate level, I think that it's up to us to be able to find our leadership and what it means to lead, and it doesn't. This is not detached from your profitability. If anything, they correlate. You read, I don't know if you've read Simon Sinek's work.
Oh yes, I love him.
The Infinite Game. If you see, I mean, he shows how companies who are playing this infinite game, how they're more successful in time, how they're not only developing their people and the business is expanding its endurance. And I'm not saying it's the only way, but it's something for all of us to think about. It's something that is quite relevant.
As you said, it's such a big topic, and one of the reasons I started doing these interviews is that I really, really understood how everything works in theory. And what I also understood is that when you go and you start applying these things into the real world, they're not going to actually work in the way you think you are. And because what I said is quite ambiguous, I will explain myself. So let's say that the person who is quite energetic and they have these leadership skills, that you can see other people veering towards them and they're following them, they follow their lead. It doesn't necessarily mean this person will become successful, even in their own terms. So because I believe the ultimate goal of talking about leadership and how people perform in organizations is to ensure success in performance, success in the health of people, success in everything. So with these metrics, a person who is good at leading others can be unsuccessful. So if we apply all that into practical terms, because as you said, your industry is very capital intensive industry. Okay, you want to operate. I assume that safety is number one priority. If there is no safety in an organization, then shareholders are not going to really like that. It's going to become big news. It's going to affect your business quite a lot. So in practical terms, let's say we have the recipe, we have the good leaders in the organization. Practically, how can you expand the business from your position strategically? Do you have discussions, let's say, that are quite threat heavy? Do you identify threats and how to solve them consistently? Do you just look forward into the vision, into the future, because you've learned from mistakes from the past? How does that dynamic work where you are?
It's a dynamic which is very hard to pinpoint in words, but we say, well, I say to a lot of my colleagues, a lot of the guys who work for us, that the competition will come to you from all directions. The key is for you to know your own direction. So as long as you're focused on your journey, that will help you orient yourself. It'll help you, carve your path. It's not going to be maybe the most successful metric, but maybe in some other metrics. There are many metrics. Einstein said that not all things that count, not all things that count can be counted, and not all things that can be counted count. So, there's a lot of metrics we can discuss. We thought of, look at happiness. What is happiness? Trying to measure happiness. I've seen it in studies.
Mm-hmm.
How you measure happiness, how you measure success, how you measure, obviously there's measure earnings per share and dividends you pay out to your shareholders, and but that's just one side. And if anything, that could be considered to be playing the finite game as opposed to the infinite. When you're playing the infinite game, then you're basically you get tailwinds supporting you. You get tailwinds. You get an uplift. Then you keep going and you keep going. This is the way I feel it. It may be a little bit gooey and philosophical, but it's the way I see it. So challenges, yes. Orientation. Is there a vision? Of course, there is a vision. Does the vision change? Not necessarily, but the way towards the vision may change. You may need to alter and pitch and change your course. And this is what we're trying to do and navigate our company to be relevant, to be at the forefront of what we're doing, to be first and foremost, good with its people, for people to be happy to come to work every day and to want to give their best at it. I mean, that's important. It's the most important thing, which I mean, that's the biggest metric. That's the most important metric. For people to find that joy in what they're doing, sharing in your vision in terms of expanding your knowledge base, becoming more relevant as a person, as a company, being a trusted consultant. Brokering is a huge realm. You can be on the one side where people put down the phone and phone at you, and then you can be on the other side where people won't make a move without speaking to you. So where you pivot yourself in time is your choice as an individual and as a company. Are you going to pivot yourself to being a valuable, trusted advisor where people just, they won't make a move without consulting you, or are you going to be the other spectrum or somewhere in between? Market is huge. Everyone's, you can choose where you're going to position yourself. On a good market, all boats are buoyed, and on a bad market, then you suddenly, you see, who's naked. Huh? Warren Buffett's. When the night goes, then we'll see who's wearing his underpants. So it's we're trying to become as relevant as we can and look at changing circumstances and help people, or we train our people and we show them that they're relevant. They are the most relevant part of our business. It's people's business, and the more skillful they are, the better they are at executing, the more joyful they are in what they do, the better it is for the company.
What I remember is I was in the Arab Hellenic Maritime Conference, the first one that happened in July. I remember Mr. Vernikos said they were talking about the future of rates, cargo rates. Everybody was pitching out a number, what I think will happen, and he came on and he said, the shipping industry is an industry where you have to have deep pockets. We can sit here and talk about numbers all day long, crunching out numbers all day long. It's an unpredictable market. It's a market where you need deep pockets and good people next to you. and that stuck with me. Good people. So I want to thank you for taking the conversation into the people aspect more so than the practical aspect, because I believe you can train an individual to do a job and do the job well. Okay. But introducing these kind of ethics and the people dynamic into the corporation, I think it's a totally different ballpark. I think we can do another whole interview on this. Mr. Mouyis, I want to thank you. You gave me way more time than I asked as well. It's an ocean of knowledge. I really, really, really appreciated your thoughts. I hope that the people who are going to watch this interview will appreciate the thoughts as well. I think it's invaluable advice. For a young person, I think it's invaluable.
Of course, thank you, and thank you. I mean, time went by. We didn't realize how quickly we were
No.
having this because there was a flow, and I enjoyed it as much as you did, and where we can share our knowledge, all of us, and share some of the stuff and experiences that we've amassed. I think is the most important thing. So I'm always happy to do that, and where I can be relevant, I'm available for that. So thanks for the opportunity, and I wish you success in what you're up to and what you're doing. Very commendable at this young age to be involved in this and to try and see how you can bring these forces together. The experience and people in the know, and to give opportunities to young people who are going to look at your stuff and to find relevance in what you're basically showing them through us. And well done, great job. And I hope we meet when you're in Greece. When you're next in Greece, it would be nice to share a coffee and have an analog discussion.
Absolutely. I'm in Greece right now, to be honest. So, but I know because of the holidays, it's going to be quite difficult. So, next time I will make sure to send you an email. Do you want me to email you? Do you want me to send something on LinkedIn? It's up to you.
LinkedIn is fine.
Great.
LinkedIn is fine. Send me LinkedIn and we'll get together and share a coffee.
I would love that. Thank you so much for your time. Okay. I can't stress this enough. Okay. It means a lot for a young person who is seeking knowledge. What you're doing is very honorable of you. Not a lot of people are going to do this. Okay. So I want to appreciate your time. Have a great end of the year. Have a happy new year, Mr. Mouyis, and we'll be in touch. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Likewise.
Bye. Bye.
Nice to meet you.